Pilgrims arrived, landed on Plymouth Rock, harvested some food and animals, and happily celebrated their colonization with the native tribes, right? The story of the first Thanksgiving, often taught in American schools, simplifies history into a heartwarming tale of pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a meal. However, historical records reveal a more complex version of these events. At the end of the 17th century, southern New England was home to a group of indigenous communities known collectively as the People of the First Light, who referred to their homeland as the Dawn Land. These societies, organized into confederations, had traded with Europeans for over a century. Unfortunately, peaceful interactions decayed as deceitful traders began capturing and selling Native Americans into slavery. Permanent European settlements were initially impossible due to the dense population of indigenous peoples. However, a devastating epidemic introduced by European traders in 1616 decimated these communities, killing up to 90% of the population in just 3 years. Among the hardest hit were the Wampanoag Confederation. The Wampanoag's leader, Massasoit, saw the fragility of his people and feared conquest by the Narragansett, their unmatched rivals. Additionally, English separatists, later known as Pilgrims, were fleeing religious persecution under King James. They aimed to build a colony in America, hoping to repay their debts by fishing. The Mayflower departed on September 6, 1620, and arrived at Cape Cod 2 months later. The settlers scavenged graves, homes, and food stores to survive, leading to tense relations with local tribes. After a harsh winter, only 44 of the original settlers survived. In March, the settlers met Samoset, a native who spoke English, and informed them they had settled on Patuxet, a former Wampanoag village wiped out by disease. 5 days later, Samoset returned with Squanto, an interpreter who had learned English during years of captivity in Europe. He introduced Massasoit, who cautiously approached the settlers to establish relations. Massasoit negotiated a peace treaty, ensuring mutual protection. With Squanto's assistance, the settlers learned vital agricultural techniques, and their situation improved. To the Pilgrims, Squanto was seen as a divine gift. However, his backstory revealed tragedy and resilience. Kidnapped in 1614, sold into slavery in Spain, and eventually making his way back home, only to find his village eradicated. Massasoit, wary of Squanto's years abroad, assigned the warrior Hobomok to monitor him. By the following fall, the settlers celebrated their first successful harvest. Massasoit and 90 of his men joined them, bringing deer to share in the festivities. This gathering became the basis of the Thanksgiving myth. Behind the scenes, Squanto leveraged his unique position as an interpreter to build influence, even plotting against Massasoit by claiming control over the English. His deception was exposed by Hobomok, angering Massasoit, who demanded Squanto's execution. Pilgrims eventually agreed, only to be interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious ship, delaying the act and frustrating Massasoit's envoys. The ship brought more settlers who antagonized the local Massachusetts people, prompting a plot against them. The arrival of more Puritan settlers shifted the balance of power, as their numbers and religious zeal made lasting coexistence impossible. While the treaty with Massasoit held until his death, other Puritans dismissed such alliances. To them, Native Americans were savages who had to either convert to Christianity or be eradicated. This ideology fueled the eventual destruction of indigenous cultures in the region. The first Thanksgiving was a fleeting moment of cooperation in a long history of conflict. Today, sharing a meal of gratitude is a cherished tradition, but it's essential to acknowledge the deeper history behind Thanksgiving. The real story is probably far from the fairy tale often told.